financial services is kind of near and dear to my heart, as well as I'm sure it is to you. So I guess, what about the blockchain technology? You know, we talk a lot of use cases. What fascinates me is every day to come across my desk are use cases around blockchain, how they're going to solve problems in the supply chain of goods and services, how they're going to solve problems in real estate titles. But what are the attributes of blockchain in financial services context? And and this is obviously the FWA, what real world problems do you see it solving in the financial services world?
The simplest way to give a simple example is perhaps the easiest way to explain the sort of application that has enormous benefits in financial services. And that is, just imagine a transaction where you and I are trading an equity security. And we probably found each other on an organized stock market venue somewhere. We've no idea who each other are, no reason why we should ever meet. We went through a price discovery process. We were probably aided each by a broker who acts as our agent. That broker may well be or have separately a clearing agent that is a member of the relevant clearing and/or settlement system, as well as the exchange. There may or may not be a third-party custodian involved. There's the clearing house itself, who has to agree to the completion of our transaction. You know, I said I buy, and you said you sell, and there's a price involved, but that's not finished. We actually need the security to change hands in accordance with a legal contract that is created on the exchange. There is ultimately a thing that's typically called a CSD, a Central Securities Depository, which you can think of as the ledger of record that keeps track of when I buy from you, that the owner of record, the ultimate owner of record, transfers. And there's this process in many jurisdictions where one or more of the intermediaries up that chain act as an agent on our behalf, where other people further up the stack of that information don't know who you and I actually are. So things are held in street name, for example, to take advantage of operational efficiencies. So think about that. It's a very hierarchical, very non-transparent, very multi-party process. Something as simple as you and I exchanging a stock has got numerous, if you list that out, with each one of the parties involved in each of our respective activities there, 6, 7, or 8 different distinct entities that need to know and need to be involved in the process of completing a simple transaction. And every single one of us today keeps a record of what you and I did separately. I may have jotted down on my blotter or on my electronic service, my broker, the clearing member, the clearing house, custodian, if there's a bank or a lender involved, ultimately the CSD. You do the same, and by the time we actually complete our trade, but then after that, make sure that we've submitted settlement instructions, confirmed the price, the direction of the trade, all of the other things that can go wrong, the chances of that information being perfect all the way up the chain is very unlikely. And this is what leads to the need to reconcile and then correct errors, which in turn, that whole process takes time and leads to settlement latency. So the fact that when you and I sell a trade, you've sold an equity, you're not going to see cash for 3 days in your account is caused by that process. So you can think of a more efficient way of financial manufacturing, if you will, by replacing that framework that I've just described with something that looks more like a financial conveyor belt, where there are multi-parties to a single transaction. You sort of think of this as analogous to making a car. Used to be that in the old days, the way they made cars was you'd start making a car, and everybody would add their bits and the wheels and the steering wheel and paint the outside, and you'd keep going until you finish that car, and you polish it off, and you send it off fantastic, and then you say, let's start again. We start from the beginning, and so instead, the introduction of the sort of conveyor belt manufacturing process enabled a much more efficient process where, you know, one person or ultimately one robot, you know, did the spraying and the cars, you know, progress along. The analogy here is to do that in financial post-trade manufacturing.